All of us have their own perfect, imperfect, little mistakes, big mistakes they've made in many games. But in Star Citizen, the amount of mistakes you can actually make is quite baffling. Many of them purely out of the lack of knowledge of how the game, its systems, controls, and well, everything works, responds to your actions, maneuvers, or things you intend to do. What I can say right now is that it's a lot harder to make some of the first mistakes I started out with. And the most obvious first one, of course, was ship flying. I mean, first person controls, those aren't hard. Most players understand them, use them, have some perspective of it. But if we talk about ship controls, ship flying, and how the world works, it has actually massively improved. Because I'm pretty sure my first three deaths, or at bare minimum first two, were trying to land a ship. I had no concept of when I should start braking, and so obviously it was a bit too late when I realized. I was moving something like 1200 meters a second while I was 2 kilometers away, so there was no space for maneuvering and or even pulling away or up. But even getting to my ship, actually the game has a massive learning curve. Perhaps not massive, because first person controls for the most part are quite reasonable. But if we go on to ship controls, ship flying, combat, and even combining, let's say, vehicle combat to ground combat or jump down or some other interesting scenario that happens in Star Citizen, there are quite a lot of outcomes depending on the equipment used and, well, vehicles used in these encounters. Of course, ship control was one of the first. This was made simpler actually by the planets getting more gravity. I started out like 5 years ago. So, of course, planets did not have the type of gravity they have today. You could be going pretty much max speed. And this wasn't helped by the fact that in most scenarios, I believe your quantum drive dropped you up above the location you were at, so you had to go straight down. And it was harder to stop, harder to predict, because you were going straight down and you don't really have a way to avoid the collision. These days, since you spawn 20 clicks away, this is actually one of the best things, because you can easily overshoot and you don't really have to worry about it unless you're aiming straight for the ground. Plus, in this version or the newer version of the game, the gravity on most planets is actually quite much more significant, more powerful than it used to be, so you can't go max speed when you're slightly above the surface of most planets or even actually plenty of the moons, if not all. I'm sure there are plenty of other big mistakes I've made, but this is the first major one. Now, of course, we can easily push it onto the count of I don't know how the game works, how the systems respond to my actions, and I don't know how to adjust the best speed, optimal usage of my ship, and all of those simple things. But it will still remain one of my first mistakes. And seeing how the game has actually improved itself, actually preventing this scenario happening in most cases, I think it is really nice. Now, you of course need to keep in mind, even if you're visiting a space target at first, that you don't want to be going directly at it because, yeah, you're probably gonna hit it. And to be honest, I still don't really feel 100% proficient 20% of the time I am flying my ship. Now, those 20% can be somewhere in the meteor field, of course, or somewhere in darkness, but there are just so many things that can go wrong with just me not paying attention. Anyway, this was one of my first mistakes and I made it 3 times, I know. It still hurts. Anyway, don't forget to like, subscribe, and thanks for watching.